So I want to focus a little bit more on just one verse. If you want to look at it, you can. It's on 274, but I'll read it out to you. Vayigash elav Yehuda, Judah approached him. Vayomer, and he said, Bi Adoni, please, or perhaps it pleased my master, Yidaber na avdecha davar be'oznei Adoni. Let your servant speak, please, a word in the ears of my master. Va'al yichar apecha be'avdecha, and don't let your anger flare against your servant. Ki chamocha kifaro, because you are like Pharaoh. I mentioned, how do you feel, and this is a real question, how do you feel when somebody approaches you, right? What are all of the different ways that we can feel when someone comes closer to you, or what do you intend when you come closer to someone else? Michaela? Okay. It's intimidating. You feel threatened. Hey, yeah? Okay, so it could be that you feel special, right? That you feel that somebody is paying. By the way, this is a message for Kiddush, okay? Go up to people, I tell you, please find somebody you haven't met before a Kiddush. That's the kind of Vayigash that I'm looking for, not Michaela's. I don't want you to threaten people. I don't want people to feel intimidated. I want them to feel special, that somebody is paying attention to them. Judy? It enhances hearing, okay? Hearing and perhaps healing, right? But hearing, it's a little bit closer. It is more intimate. Carlin? Right? So they just go up to anybody, right? And maybe they're magnetic personalities and people come up to them. So I want to, at first glance, we might be surprised, but I want to begin with Michaela's suggestion that it can be intimidating or threatening, and bring you Rashi's understanding of Judah approaching Joseph. Judah says that when it says Yidaber al yichar apecha be'avdecha, don't let your anger flare up at your servant, that from the fact that Judah says this, you know that he's actually speaking to him kashut. He's speaking to him harshly, right? That Judah, in other words, why do you have to say don't get angry if you're not speaking in a way that's going to make him angry? And when it says ki chamocha kiparo, because Judah says to Joseph, you're like Pharaoh. According to Rashi, the midrashic understanding of this is that Judah is saying to him, you will ultimately be stricken with a plague for detaining Benjamin, even as your ancestor Pharaoh was stricken with a plague for detaining my ancestress Sarah for one night. Do you remember this story? Abraham and Sarah, there's a famine, similar circumstances. They go down to Egypt. The whole sister, hey, Sarah, you're pretty. Would you please say that you're my sister, not my wife? Pharaoh thinks that she's eligible. And then he gets struck. The Torah says, Vayinaga Paro, he was struck with a plague. And Judah, when he's saying, you're like Pharaoh, he's not saying, oh, you're so powerful. He's saying, you're going to get it, just like your ancestor did. He's speaking to him harshly. There's another midrashic reading that says that Judah is saying to him, if you provoke me, I'm going to slay you and your master. The midrash pictures Judah as being so strong that hairs burst through his clothing of his chest, and that he puts brass pellets in his mouth and he grinds them together. And you can understand part of this reading, because we know that not all approaches are intimacy and are wanting to make someone feel special. Sometimes approaches are meant to be intimidating. I gave this to Bar Torah downstairs. I came out from behind the bima and I was saying it this way. And somebody said, "Whoa, Rabbi, please move away." Not all approaches. And by the way, the Baal Turim, who loves gematria, it's a commentator from the Middle Ages who loves gematria. He says, Vayigash Elav Yehuda. If you take the last letter of each of those words, Vayigash Elav Yehuda, Shin Vav Hey, you get Shaveh, that Judah was saying to him, I am equal to you, just as you are a king, I'm a king. Now, you can understand this, I think, for two reasons. Number one, what I mentioned at the beginning of the Torah reading, which is that at the end of last week's Torah reading, Joseph says, you go in peace to your father. He is twisting the knife. He has manipulated things so that Benjamin would be kept captive because he is testing the brothers and wants to know, have you changed? And nobody enjoys being tested by others, being manipulated by others. There is a way in which Joseph, having been the victim of being sold into slavery, has every right to test and make sure that he is going to be safe. But there is a way in which he is frankly just being a jerk. And you can imagine Judah finally saying, I've had enough. I've had enough of you acting this way. You can also imagine, by the way, Rashi quoting these midrashim because Rashi lived in medieval France, and the Jews of medieval France were persecuted mercilessly, lived terribly under Christian rule. And when you don't have power, part of what you do is you imagine. What you do have when you don't have physical power is you have the power of words. You have the power of imagination. And there is something ennobling about imagining Judah being with brass pellets and hair bursting, being strong because they were weak. And so you can imagine Rashi saying this is an important story to give, but it's not the only way of interpreting this. And let me just say one other word. I mentioned my teacher, a teacher for so many, Rabbi Eliezer Diamond. When I was at the Rabbinic Training Institute a number of years ago, I did have the opportunity to learn with him. And he was a great teacher, not just of Talmud, but about what it means to be a human being. And he did a whole week of classes for us on what Judaism, the Jewish view of anger, of struggling with anger. And I went out and I bought this book, Sefer Orach HaPaim, basically a book about Jewish teachings on anger. And I just want to share one that we learned together. They bring it from the Zohar, where the Zohar says, Kol hakoes kilu oved avodah zarah. Anyone who gets angry is as if you have worshipped idols. And the reason for that is b'sha'at ka'asod nistalek mimenu ha'emunah. When you get angry, then faith flees away from you, right? Because ilu haya ma'amin sheme'et Adonai haytazot. You remember in Hallel? Me'et Adonai haytazot. What we're saying when we say that is, this is from God. And if you truly believe that what happens to you in this life is from God, then you don't get angry. Because you have faith that even though something is occurring in this world, I'm not saying this is easy, right? But even though something is occurring in this world that I feel anger about, I'm going to let it go and I'm going to trust that things will be okay. And so While I understand imagining Judah as being strong and getting angry with Joseph, there's another way to read it. It comes from a Barbanel who you know I've been learning with my chavruta, and he reads this as follows. First of all, he says, when you hear Vayigash elav Yehuda, Judah approaches him, Vayomer bi Adoni, and he says, B is usually translated as please my master, but really B is, it's on me. And Barbanel says that Judah is saying, what's happened is on me. Why am I approaching you? Because I gave surety to my father. This is on me. My fate is bound up with his fate. And if this happens to him, it happens to me too. And ultimately, he says that Judah approaches him not to threaten him, but because Joseph is a ruler. And what he's asking him to do is not just. Let me review for you. Joseph says at the end of last week's Torah portion, what are you talking about? You're all going to be slaves. No. Chalilali, right? Just like Abraham. If we're going to be just, then the person who is guilty must be punished, and the people who are innocent must be innocent. So you go in peace to your father, because Benjamin is the one who's guilty. And Judah is asking him to do something which is unjust. He's saying, I accept that I am innocent, but I want to be guilty. I want you to punish me instead. And I accept that you have proven that Benjamin is guilty, but please, please, please free him, even though it's not just I'm asking for mercy. And if I'm going to ask for mercy, I can't do that publicly because you are a judge. And I'm going to read you something Barbanel says. He says, it is actually as if it has to be, hold on, I'll find it. He says it's the equivalent of offering a bribe to a judge that you have to do discreetly and in secret. It's an extraordinary phrase. He says Judah is offering a bribe to a judge. I'm begging you for mercy, and that's why he approaches him and he says, Yedaber na avdecha davar be'oznei Adoni. Let me just speak a word into your ears privately, so that nobody else has to hear and nobody else has to know. Ki chamocha kiparo, not accusing him, I'm going to get you just like Pharaoh got gotten centuries, generations before. But no, you're Pharaoh. You can do anything you want. And what I want to say about this, Malachi Hakohen downstairs said to me, this is essentially two Jewish approaches to politics. And the first one, I get the temptation of Judah, but this is soft power. This is subtlety. It's private. It's humble. And these are things which are sorely lacking in our world today. We live in a world where the art of conversation is dropping the mic and humiliating the person with whom we are in conversation or argument to the greatest extent possible. And Judah here is showing a different way. He's saying, I throw myself at your mercy, and I'm asking you to change your mind. And changing your mind can be humiliating because somebody can say, but you said different. And if you're going to change your mind, I need to be respectful. And I need to give you the space to think. And I need to give you a way to do that and still preserve your dignity. I can't resist. I'll just share one other example with you. I'm really enjoy, as my sons are here, will tell you the series Band of Brothers. There is a scene towards the end as the Germans are surrendering and a Nazi general comes forward and says to Major Winters, who's the head of the 101st, I want to present you with my sidearm because it would be humiliating for me to present it to a clerk. And Major Winters, very interestingly, says to him, you may keep your sidearm, Colonel. And what he's saying to him is, we won, and I don't need to humiliate you in the process. And the rabbis teach humiliating someone is a terrible, terrible sin. And Judah here is showing his strength in a different way. In another place, the rabbis say in Pirkei Avot, Ezuhu Gibor HaKovesh et Yitzro, who is somebody who's strong? It's not somebody with huge muscles whose hairs burst out of their shirt and who grinds brass talic. They say, no, you want to know who's strong? It's somebody who's in control of themselves, who doesn't get angry, but who's able to speak quietly and respectfully and make room for others. Shabbat Shalom.